Welcome back, YouTube. My name is TayVikes28, and I am back here live with the Toronto Huskies franchise, and I am very excited to get underway into the off season once again with you guys. Now, I know we started things off a little slow in our last video, and that had a lot to do with just kind of getting you guys caught up in terms of what was going on around the league. So we had the playoffs. We got to look at some of the stats last episode, and then we got to start into the free agency. And during the off time between the last video and now, I was able to go through and actually allocate the correct draft picks for us for this upcoming season. Now, I mentioned how I had a ton of extra draft capital for this upcoming draft that I shouldn't have necessarily had, and that is just due to some of the changes that I made when I first took over the team. So for those of you that are new here, this is the Toronto Huskies franchise. It is a different type of franchise than what you're used to, most likely on YouTube. And real quick, I'm going to check my audio, so bear with me here. Got to make sure it all sounds all right for you guys. All right, seems like the audio is good on my end, so hopefully it's all right for you guys. But as I was saying, though, the Toronto Huskies franchise is a little different. So this Huskies franchise is one that you don't necessarily go in and are going to be we're not going to be playing the games. We're going to be watching the games, okay? Every single snap of every single game we get to see, and I'll commentate over it for you guys. However, we do not impact the game itself. Okay, so we put the product on the football field, kind of like an NFL GM or head coach would, and then it's up to the players to perform at a high level. So really, this is more of a team-building exercise than anything, and we're trying to win some championships here with the Toronto Huskies franchise. And we started at the absolute bottom. We took over the Jacksonville Jaguars roster, the team rights for the Jaguars, who got sold because Shad Khan didn't want to be a part of the NFL anymore. And so the Jaguars, all those players went into free agency and got picked up by various other teams. And then Ryan Fitzmagic, as you see in the top right-hand corner, our owner, and also quarterback in the first inaugural season of the Toronto Huskies franchise, he took the rights to the team, moved him to Toronto, okay, and then started a squad up there. And we started from the very bottom. I think we had maybe one or two players that were above like a 74, 75 overall to start this thing off. And we have just grown since then. So let me show you guys the roster right now real quick here. And we're going to go position by position. And now this is also including some holes that we have currently on the roster due to where we're in the middle of free agency. So like the quarterback position, we only have one on the roster right now, but that will most likely change here, hopefully. So, got a handful of running backs. We do have a fullback here that we were able to grab, including CJ Ham. Now, you're probably wondering, why do you have two fullbacks? And these fullbacks actually came via a trade that we made, and we got CJ Ham for a late round pick, okay, from the Minnesota Vikings. And I am very excited to have him because he's a perfect replacement for Robert Tonyan, who tight end turned fullback, who we had last season, and now we have CJ Ham instead. I think he's going to fit in very well into this offense. And then we've got did I say CD? I meant CJ Ham. If I said CD, that's because I'm thinking of CeeDee Lamb here at the wide receiver position. And then we've got a handful of other guys who you will recognize. And I'm very excited to see some of these young players develop this upcoming season. And then we've got the tight end who we locked up long-term, Jonnu Smith. I thought he played very well this past season. And then we have a very young offensive line. And that's one thing that I feel like is a building piece for the future, are all these young offensive linemen that we have. And then we've got a couple of edge rushers. Not a ton, though, so that's a place we're going to be looking to get better this offseason. We got Floyd Ellis in the middle, the star defensive tackle. And then we've also got a couple of pretty good linebackers, a really good linebacking core as a whole here on this team. But some of them, like Demario Davis, the veteran, getting older. All right. And then we've got a couple of stud outside linebackers here. And then looking at the cornerback position, we were able to bring Big Play Slay back on a 1-year contract in free agency. So we got our duo back at the cornerback position and some depth here who will hopefully develop into really good players for us. Then we got Jalen Thompson still in the back end with Jaquil Easter, the now second-year player, going into his second year. So his rookie year was really successful in my opinion. Then we got Josh Lambo and Matt Hack still. And as you see, these are the draft picks we've got that we actually get to use in this upcoming draft. We do have 11 selections in this draft. We may not necessarily use them all. We may trade down for future draft capital or something like that, or maybe trade for a player. We'll have to see how it all pans out. But we do have 2 first-round draft picks, and we have 2 second-round draft picks as well. New Orleans gave us a couple of picks for a first-round selection last year that we traded away. And then we have 3 third-round selections. And then we just have our normal 4, 5, 6, and 7, except our 4 is actually Atlanta's 4. But yes, 4, 5, 6, and 7, that is what we're rolling with right here. So 11 total draft picks. We could have 11 new players coming into this squad. The question is, who will it be? And that's something that we'll have to be looking at moving forward. And going back here to the negotiations, back to what we were trying to do last episode, we have a handful of guys here that we already have contracts out for. Now we may be lowballing a couple of them, like Phillip Rivers or Linval Joseph, some of these veterans who don't have any interest so far from other teams. We're going to try and get them on a cheaper deal and see what guys we are able to sign, which ones we aren't. And yes, did throw a contract out on Trayvon Diggs. Can't let a guy like him slip through the cracks, especially at less than $3 million a year. That would be a steal. Then we've got Ryan Kerrigan. We're really hoping to bring him back. He performed really well for us last year. Was actually our number 2 player in terms of sacks on our roster. So we definitely want to bring him back. It was a great signing last season, or last offseason, I should say. And then David DeCastro is someone we're eyeballing to possibly help out this offensive line. Not that it needs a ton of help, but the interior, especially on the left side of the interior offensive line, could use some assistance. And I think David DeCastro, even though he's a right guard, I think he could play left guard perfectly fine. So we'll have to look into that. Hopefully we're able to secure him. And then we do have an extra $12 million that I would like to utilize in some fashion. And I might throw some extra money here at David DeCastro, make sure we get him. So we're going to go ahead and up that contract a little bit. Get up to a 106-point offer. And like I said, we do have an extra about 11 million, give or take, that we can throw out at some other players or one player if we wanted to go that route. And these are the top guys left on the open market. A lot of running backs out there, and that's something that we don't necessarily need. But that's what the current situation is looking like in free agency. And I think we're going to roll with what we got right now, see who we end up getting, who we don't end up getting. We do have one more round to adjust these contracts, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they're in free agency part 3. We will be able to adjust one more time, and hopefully we get some more guys signed. But let's go ahead and advance this thing and see what we are able to end up with. I would really, really like to see David DeCastro and Ryan Kerrigan accept. And Jordan Hicks accepted. Trayvon Diggs got Ryan Kerrigan and David DeCastro. So we got a handful of guys here on some cheaper contracts, actually. We did lowball some of these guys like Trayvon Diggs and Jordan Hicks, but they ended up signing with us anyways. despite the smaller amounts of money that we were giving them. So this is what we currently have. We got Jordan Hickson, and the reason I wanted to bring Jordan Hickson, I wanted him more in terms of depth purposes. I felt like we needed a number 2 middle linebacker. We do have J.J. Marable, who is developing well behind Demario Davis, but I just wanted that other guy and someone who had coverage ability as well. And that's one thing that Jordan Hicks really excels at in terms of his skill set right now is his coverage ability and his tackling. So you combine the two, and that's exactly what we needed as a middle linebacker number 2 on the roster. So I went out and signed him on a pretty cheap deal. So less than $2 million a year, or it was a 1-year contract, but less than $2 million for a player who could make an impact this upcoming season. And another good lowball signing here with Trayvon Diggs, less than $3 million a year for him. Ryan Kerrigan, he wanted over $6 million. We got him for $5 million, so that's another deal here that we were able to secure. And it makes up for it because we had to overpay a little bit on guys like Darius Slay and David DeCastro to make sure we got them. But we did, in fact, secure both of them, which I'm very excited about. All right, looking at the remaining free agents, we have a handful of them still left. Looks like we still got 2 contracts out. And as you see, no one's jumping off the page so far for me. And Justin Jefferson is still out there. That is intriguing. Very, very intriguing to bring in Justin Jefferson. And maybe we just go ahead and do it. That's tempting. Let's take a look real quick at our roster, what we're looking at right now in terms of the receiving core. I like our receiving core, I do. And that's why it's tough for me to say let's go get Justin Jefferson. He would end up being the 3rd receiver, kind of replacing T. Higgins, who I felt has played well in his role. And Trent Sherfield has been a good number 4, along with Michael Pittman kind of being that 4A-B situation. And so it's tough for me to say, yeah, let's go ahead and get Justin Jefferson and put another mouth in here to feed because we already have such a deep receiving core. They're just so young right now. And so I think I'm going to actually, as a Vikings fan, this is tough for me to say, but I think I'm going to let Justin Jefferson go to whoever. It looked like the Saints were going to sign him. So let's look at some of these guys that we can scout real quick. If we're looking for a backup quarterback, that's something that I do want to look at because I didn't really like any of the options that were out there on the open market so far in free agency. So let's go ahead and look at some of these other guys. Maybe we can find someone who can make an impact for us. right. So as I mentioned before, we do have a handful of picks this upcoming draft. We have 11 of them. So there could be 11 of these players that end up on our squad. Since we have picks 7 and 25, we are looking here at the overall board. These are some of the guys who are in our range here to possibly draft with our first selection, which is intriguing because I feel like our roster is set so well we don't necessarily have to have any of these guys. So it's really a luxury pick here at the top for us. And then at 25, same situation. I don't necessarily feel like we have to have any of these guys, but a guy like Dylan Moses might be good to bring in, or maybe we bring in a running back to help out the running game, and Travis Etienne or Najee Harris, something like that, depending on how we are feeling about that. Or maybe we do bring in a tight end, like a Brevin Jordan. We'll have to wait and see what we end up feeling like once the draft hits. But I believe this is going to set us up to maybe send one more contract out if we really like somebody. I'm not really sure who that would be. Ooh, Antoine Winfield Jr. would be interesting. And that wouldn't be a bad player to bring in to be kind of a backup, possible starter, depending on how things go. Maybe we'll up Linval Joseph's money a little bit. Give him a little extra incentive to come sign with us. Carlos Dunlap would be interesting as well. Just as a rotational pass rusher. I don't know if he would get on the field enough, though. That's the thing that worries me. I think we're good. I'm just gonna maybe bank that money for some of our younger guys when their contract is inevitably up. I think that would be a wise decision. So let's go ahead and maybe go that route. Alright, let's go ahead and advance. I'm excited to see, and we did get both Phillip Rivers and Linval Joseph. So we got our veteran backup in Phillip Rivers, and we got Linval Joseph to be a depth piece across the defensive line. Very excited about both of those signings. I think they could end up helping us if a situation occurs that we may not necessarily be 100% ready for. Now we hopefully will be. So let's see, what else can we go look at? Let's go ahead and maybe now we'll scout some running backs here, see what we can bring forward. Use these last 5 points here. Hopefully we're able to find someone. Or maybe not. Alright, well, looks like we're just going to lose out on those 5 points. Oh well. Alright, advancing here to the NFL draft officially. Very excited to see how this draft goes. We'll real quick take a look at how free agency went down. Got some running backs and a few other players still out here. Could end up getting scooped up before the start of next season. But the signings right now, we have Kareem Hunt going to the Cardinals on a 4-year deal. Chris Harris to the Bengals. Philip Lindsay to the Texans. Gallup to the Bears. Kwiatkowski to the Bills. Jordan Howard to the Patriots. Interesting. Trey Flowers to the Bengals. Kenyon Drake to the Steelers. Haha Clinton Dix to the Titans. Derek Nandi. Got a handful of signings here. Nothing too crazy though. I would like to see who signed officially Justin Jefferson. Looks like Brandon Graham goes back to the Eagles. The Saints did in fact get him. Pretty cheap as well. So, let's go ahead and start the draft officially. So the Detroit Lions, after being the worst team in the NFL this past season, have the #1 pick. And let's see what route they go. Do they go with the quarterback? I think they will. We'll have to find out. Oh my, just like in real life, only earlier, they draft Penei Sewell here with the #1 overall selection instead of at what it was, I believe, pick 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. So Penei Sewell going off the board there. So then that means the Chiefs, who could be in line to take a quarterback because they don't have Mahomes, and last season was a struggle without him. And they do, in fact, go with Trevor Lawrence. So all is well once again out there in Kansas City. We'll have to see how that pans out for them. And then the Atlanta Falcons, pick #3. They go with Justin Fields. Interesting. That's especially interesting because, real quick, looking at the Falcons quarterback situation, that probably means Matt Ryan is officially a backup now. Possibly. We'll have to see if they end up going that route. And while Eric Green filled in admirably last season, after Mahomes left the building, he just couldn't quite cut it for what they were looking for. So, looks like it'll be a new day out there in both Kansas City and Atlanta. So now the New York Jets at pick #4. They go out and get Patrick Surtain. It's a good selection there for the Jets. I'm sure he will end up being a great player in this series. And then the Minnesota Vikings. What will the Vikings do at pick #5? Okay, well, typical Minnesota. Go with an interior defensive lineman. So the Raiders here at pick #6. One more selection here. And they go out and get Caden Stearns, the safety. So now we are sitting here at pick #7, and we have a slew of interesting players on the board. Very interesting players. The question is, who will be the selection here? Or will there be a selection? Maybe we trade down. So let's go ahead and look at that before we make any sort of decision. We got Jamar Chase on the board, Micah Parsons on the board, Rondale Moore, Pat Freiermuth, Alex Leatherwood, Gregory Rousseau. Some interesting names for sure. Or let's look at the offers here. We do have a couple of offers. Nothing jumping out at me so far. Yeah, these are some pretty bad offers. So looks like we will be making a selection here. The question is, who will be the selection? Now, Gregory Rousseau fills that need in terms of an edge rusher that we were looking for. So that could be someone that we go after. And he does have both finesse and block shedding abilities. So that is definitely interesting. Of course, you got the two big names here with Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons. Now, Jamar Chase, do we need a receiver? Much like we didn't necessarily need Justin Jefferson. Okay? Do we need Jamar Chase? Probably not. But it would be fun, not gonna lie. And then we've also got Micah Parsons here, who we talked about how strong our linebacking core already was. So once again, do we need Micah Parsons? Maybe not. But it could be fun. And maybe we don't need Micah Parsons, but we could move him or one of the other linebackers to an edge rushing position. So we have to keep that in mind as well. So lots of decisions here. I don't think we're going to go with Pat Freiermuth. Just signed Jonnu Smith. And Rondell Moore. If I'm going to draft a receiver, it's going to be Jamar Chase. It's as simple as that. And I don't think we're going to go with an offensive lineman. So really, for me, in this selection, it is down to 3 players. Gregory Rousseau, Micah Parsons, and Jamar Chase. Now the question is, if we're going off of real life, probably one of these first 2, right? But if we're going off of what we currently need, let's take a look here. So at receiver, if we go with Jamar Chase, he will probably be a plug-and-play number 2 receiver, which would slide Keontae Bonds back to 3, T. Higgins to 4, and so on and so forth. We also have to look at the linebacker spot. Now he plays left outside, which means Logan Wilson, who actually played pretty well last season, showed off his tackling ability, I think could maybe move inside officially, make him a middle linebacker, and then keep Micah Parsons at left outside. Or maybe we move one of these guys to maybe left end or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how we would go about doing that yet. But that could be an option. It'll give us a lot of flexibility in our front 7 on the defensive side. I think that might be the move. Or we could go out and just get Gregory Rousseau, a plug-and-play left end there. So there's a lot of options. And if we do go with Gregory Rousseau, I believe, I have to double check here. Yeah, that's tough. I think I'm going to go with Micah Parsons here. Now, the reason being, I love flexibility on defense. I love being able to push and put guys different positions. So, for example, like what I do with Adarius Evans, I play him both at linebacker and at edge rusher. Okay, same thing with Quincy Williams. All right, I love that ability to move pieces along my defensive front and to never give an offense the same type of look. And that, I think, is what helps us have such a dominant pass rush, and especially that front 7 in general. So I think that Micah Parsons could be a really key factor for us on defense. Not that Gregory Rousseau wouldn't be, but I just feel like the athletic ability that Micah Parsons brings to the table might just be that deciding factor for me. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go with Micah Parsons. All right, so we hit it on the nose. Number 7 in true talent, draft him at 7. That is Micah Parsons, hidden dev, 87 speed. He's got all 3: power, finesse, block shedding, all capable of being used. I like what he brings to the table. Very well rounded, and I think he's going to fit this defense quite well. So let's go ahead and see what the Cincinnati Bengals do here. And they go with Pat Freiermuth. I thought maybe they were going to get Jamar Chase just like in real life, but they go with Pat Freiermuth instead. So they go with the tight end. Interesting move there. The Texans. And there it is. It looks like we will be playing against Jamar Chase twice a season. A 79 overall off the bat here. And like I said, I expected him to be a plug-and-play number 2 receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb. And, maybe I'll regret that. But, especially since I'll have to play him twice a year. But I feel like I can handle playing against Jamar Chase twice a year. I don't know if I would necessarily be able to handle going up against a guy like Micah Parsons twice a year. So we'll have to see. So now we got the Denver Broncos at pick number 10. And they go out and get Rondale Moore, who's actually a 78 overall. Interesting. I just wasn't really that excited about what he brought to the table. So then we have the Carolina Panthers here at pick number 11. And they get Gregory Rousseau, who ended up being a 78 overall. So probably would have been a good player as well for us. All right, the Washington football team here go out and get Xavier Thomas. All right. And the Steelers select Sean Wade. Ravens get Thomas Booker. Seahawks get Tyson Campbell. Okay. And the Packers get Jackson Carman, the tackle. And then Jalen Waddle to the Eagles. No Devonta Smith. Looks like it's Waddle this time. I'd say that's an upgrade in my opinion. And then the Bills get Dylan Moses, who I would have definitely considered drafting with our our next selection if he would have been on the board. That would have been someone that I would have considered going out and getting. But since he's off the board, that is going to essentially solidify that position for us. We've got Marvin Wilson off the board to the Rams. The Cardinals go get Alex Leatherwood. The Chargers select Wyatt Davis at the left guard position. Now the Bears, they go get Jonathan Cooper. So now we've got the Colts, who are in our division, and we'll have to play this whoever they draft twice a year here. And they go get, Sam Cosmi, left tackle. I think that's reasonable. And then the Bucks get Brevin Jordan. Okay. So let's go ahead and real quick look at the board, see who's available here at pick 25. We got Trey Smith on the board. Rashad Bateman is there. We got a couple of running backs here. Etienne, Najee Harris. Trey Lance is out there. Chuba Hubbard as well. Some interesting names here. But going back to the top, I'm actually eyeballing a running back. Because this is the final year on Latavius Murray's contract. And we need someone to be that number 2 guy to spell Aaron Jones and maybe take over for Aaron Jones one day. And I think the question for me is just, what type of running back do I want? Do I want a guy with some elusiveness, with a little bit of juking ability like a Chuba Hubbard? Or do I want someone that's a lot bigger back, like a Najee Harris, powerful, stiff arm ability that Najee brings to the table, who still has some moves as well? Or do I go with the elusive receiving back, kind of do it all in Travis Etienne? And I think the route that I'm going to go, due to the way that our offense is, and just the way that our playbook and things essentially play out, I think I'm actually going to go with Travis Etienne. I think that is the best route for us, because since he does have some ability to catch the football, I think that's something that is going to help our offense a lot. Kind of like Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones has pretty good ability to catch the ball, and you see him. He had, was it 65 catches or something like that last year out of the backfield. And so if we can have a number 2 running back, possible, running back of the future, to be able to do that as well, I think it would be really helpful to our offense. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Travis Etienne here. Unless, real quick, could go with Trey Smith, but I just feel like getting Etienne is the move. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And number 17 in true value, got him at 25. So we hit that. Hidden Dev, 76 overall, 93 speed. I like that. Now, as you see, trucking and stiff arm, not extremely high, but good juke move, good spin move. He's got some elusiveness as well. I like what he brings to the table, and 71 catching off the bat. So we got Travis Etienne, possible running back of the future for your Toronto Huskies. Now let's finish out this first round, see what happens. Browns go out and get Damon Clark. Then we got Rashad Bateman to San Francisco, so no Brandon Ayuk. It is, in fact, Rashad Bateman. Always loved Bateman. They have Darian Kendrick to the Dolphins. Now the Titans, let's see who they end up with. Wow, okay. The Titans draft Trey Lance, so we're going to be having a new quarterback out in Tennessee, which makes sense because they did let Ryan Tannehill hit free agency, and I don't think Holmberg was the answer because last year he didn't play too well. So Trey Lance, the North Dakota State quarterback, heading to Tennessee, and we will get to see him twice a year. So now the Dallas Cowboys go out and get Justin Ross. Okay, first round product. Interesting. Then Andre Cisco to the Giants. And to round out the first round here, the Patriots get Merlin Robertson. So let's go ahead and get to our next selection. We'll go through these ones a little bit quicker here. Got Najee Harris to the Chiefs. Interesting, building up that Chiefs offense again. We got Najee and or not Patrick Mahomes, excuse me. Yes, the drawing a blank quarterback. Yeah. We got Asante Samuel, who is going to be joining Justin Fields. Pretty good start there for the Falcons. The Jets got Javon Holland. So they're really building that secondary up. And then the Vikings go and get Jamie Newman, quarterback That is interesting. So then the Raiders here get Chua Hubbard. Now we do have 2 selections in this round. And we'll have a decision here to make. I think that the one that is intriguing me right now, there's a lot of options out here, but I think the one that really jumps out at me is actually Atlanta's 2, 3, and 6. A 6 this year and a 2 and a 3 next year. I think that would be a good move for us. Get some draft capital for this upcoming draft. And maybe put us in a position to... Although we could get Trey Smith still. Which is certainly intriguing. So the question is, will we go with the Trey Smith pick here, or do we go ahead and get some draft capital for next year? I think we talked about getting a left guard, and while he won't start necessarily for us immediately, I do think grabbing Trey Smith here would be a good selection. So getting him to essentially fill in for David DeCastro once he moves on after this season, most likely from the team, that would be a good move. So grabbing Trey Smith here, and he ends up being a hidden dev player, 26 in true talent, got him at 39, so it was a good selection for us there. And I think he could fit quite well into this offensive line. Give him a year to develop behind him, and I think we'll have him up to a very usable left guard there. And I think it was a good move, grabbing a left guard, someone who can plug and play there for the future. So then let's go ahead and roll through this draft a little bit further here. Kylan Hill goes off the board there. Afunga going to the Texans. Get to see him twice a year. That'll be exciting. Always liked him as a player. Tyler Linderbaum going to the Panthers. Josh Myers to the football team. Chris Olave, wide receiver to the Steelers. Interesting. The Ravens. Okay, going with the secondary. Grabbing a tackle here for Seattle. Finally getting some offensive linemen out there. Paulson Adebo to the Bills. I definitely would have considered drafting him just for talent with our next selection if he would have been there. Luke Campbell. Kenneth Gainwell to the Cardinals, who also signed Kareem Hunt. So that's a 1-2 punch there, the running back position. So Alright, going with secondary in the out there with San Diego, or excuse me, LA, I guess. I don't know where San Diego. Sorry, San Diego fans. Safety here to the Bears. Good selection there. Nicholas Petit-Ferrier to the Colts. So we get to face off against him. I think we'll be alright with that. Alright, so we are back on the clock here. Second selection in the second round. And I'm thinking maybe this is where we go ahead and trade down, although I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these options. Maybe getting Phillies 2nd and 7 next year wouldn't be a terrible decision here. It's so interesting to think about grabbing some of these guys, but probably good to just trade this pick away. Ooh, Aiden Hutchinson. That would be interesting. Got a handful of guys here in the later rounds that I wouldn't mind getting. So yes, let's go ahead and trade this selection away. Get some draft capital for the future. I think a 2 and a 7 from Philly wouldn't be the worst thing. Let's see what they do with this selection. They go out and get Creed Humphrey. Not a bad decision, especially with Jason Kelsey getting older. Monty Rice to the Browns. Jamar Jefferson to the Dolphins. Got Lorenzo Neal, the defensive tackle, not the old school back. And PJ Mustipher to the Cowboys. Liam Eichenberg to the Giants. And Amon-Ra St. Brown to the Patriots. Alright, interesting decision there. We got 2 selections back to back here to start off the 3rd round after the Lions pick. Okay, so could trade this pick away if we wanted to go that route. Or maybe we trade it for a player. That could be something that we might want to look into, depending on how we feel about some of these trades. Not a lot of great ones out there. So real quick, let's look at our team. What do we feel like we need? Not saying I would do this, but just out of curiosity, I wonder how much Buda Baker would cost. So I could get him for a 3rd round pick. Heck yeah. Nowhere near. Alright. I didn't expect it to be cheap. I was just curious. Now, I wouldn't mind getting maybe a veteran who could just really make a massive splash for our team. That's something that we could consider doing. even if it was only kind of a 1-year rental. I wonder how much it would cost to get DeAndre Hopkins. Although he's only 30, so he's not crazy old yet, so probably would cost quite a bit. Like someone who's like 32, 33 could possibly get him for a little bit cheaper. Like, who knows what would it cost to get Travis Kelce? Okay. So that's not actually that far off. Not saying I would necessarily do it, but Travis Kelce could be an option. No one's jumping out at me so far. Zero interest. That would be interesting. J.J. Watt would be intriguing as well. I guess the question is, which one would help our team out the most? Jonnu Smith to Travis Kelce would be quite an upgrade. And Smith would still be a number 2 tight end, so he'd still have some use. course, going and getting J.J. Watt would be awfully nice. And then I think we talked about Bobby Wagner as well. All of these would be upgrades, but the question to me is how much of an upgrade? I don't think Bobby Wagner is the move. Now the two that J.J. Watt and Travis Kelce are certainly entertaining. Kelce would be... I've never actually had him in any franchise ever. So that would be intriguing. Like, let's see what he did last year. So he had 70 receptions, 780 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So nothing too crazy. What did J.J. Watt do last year? 13.5 sacks, 15 tackles for loss. That would be nice. And he does have 2 years left on his deal. Or I don't know what Kelce's got. He's got 4 years on his deal. Wow, that would be... Dang. Travis Kelce, that is... Let's see if we can't get Travis Kelce on here. I think that would be exciting. So let's throw together a couple of draft picks here. A couple of these early third-round draft picks, and that almost does it. So we would be throwing 3 draft picks together for Travis Kelce. Now, I know that might seem like a lot, but I think that it's going to be a good move because it's Travis Kelce. So let's see if we can get it to go, and it does go through. So we send the 2nd and 3rd pick in the 3rd round, and our 7th round draft choice for Travis Kelce. So the Chiefs are gearing up for the future. They don't see Kelce as necessarily the future. So they go ahead and move him, and that means we have Travis Kelce officially. Wow. Did not see that coming. And we still have Jonnu Smith, so we could have a nice little duo at tight end here. Sorry, Jesper Horsted, but you have just been eliminated from the offense and almost entirely. So they traded up and they get Tyree Johnson. They're not traded up, but, you know. And Devonta Smith. So they trade out Travis Kelce for Devonta Smith in the offense. Interesting decision there. Shaka Tony to the Vikings. And so now we have a decision here. Who will we select with our 3rd round selections? So because we only have 3, 4, 5, and 6 left, so we have 4 selections. Now the question is, where do we go here with this one? Now, Aiden Hutchinson would definitely be intriguing. I don't necessarily know if it's the best move. Now, obviously, we don't need any of these tight ends anymore. So I think the route we are going to end up going is actually Aiden Hutchinson as depth and a possible starter for the future. So let's go ahead and grab Aiden Hutchinson here. Hidden Dev, 48 in true talent, 71 overall. And like I said, I love building the front seven. It's one of the most important things, I think, in this game is to be able to rush the passer and have a dominant front seven. If you have a dominant front seven, you can have a secondary that may not be up to snuff. So let's go ahead and get rolling through this draft here. We got Brock Purdy going off the board there to the Texans. Interesting. Deshaun Watson's replacement, maybe? We'll have to see. 71 overall. I would consider drafting him, actually. So that is interesting. Kyle Trask off the board to the Panthers. Tanner Morgan to the Seahawks. Jeremy Ruckert going to the Chargers. Anthony Schwartz going to the Lions. No Monra, so they get Anthony Schwartz instead. All right, here at pick 3 in the 4th round, got another decision to make. So looking at the quarterbacks that are available, not a lot are piquing my interest. But just in terms of a backup, I think having a guy like a Kellen Mond would be interesting. Question is, do we want to draft him this high? I don't think so. Which then means, where do we go? And I actually like the idea of getting a depth player with some potential in Josh Joby here. I like that B+ man coverage. Normal dev, but 72 overall. Good speed. I think we can work with him. Now rolling through this 4th round of the draft, you can see the picks that are getting made there. Cade Mays goes to the Texans to face him twice a year. Keontae Ingram to the Rams. Kyle Pitts going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They do not get Pat Freiermuth. Instead, they get Kyle Pitts. Interesting decisions being made here. I see Jordan Davis going to the Seahawks. Jalen Phillips to the Eagles. Trey Hill finally goes off the board to the Bills. Hamza Nasir-Ladin. I don't know if I said that right. But he goes to the Chargers. Good pick there. Quincy Roche to the Bucks. Sean Clifford just goes off the board to the Browns. He was a 69 overall, which wouldn't be bad for a backup quarterback. Terrace Marshall goes to the Jets. The Vikings get Jerry Jacobs. And now back on the clock again here in the 5th round, pick number 7. Got a handful of opportunities here. The question is, which one are we going to take? I actually think getting a backup quarterback would not be the worst decision here. And so I'm going to go ahead and draft Kellen Mond. Not saying he's going to start for us anytime soon or ever, but just having that solid backup quarterback. And a 67 overall. It is technically a reach, but I knew that going in. I just wanted someone with some mobility, 82 speed. Still has decent throw power at 90. Just need to work on the accuracies and he'll be okay. Walker Little does in fact go to the Raiders here. Jermaine Johnson going to Washington. Nico Collins to the Bills. Continuing through this draft here, we're nearing the end of the 5th round as Devontae Wyatt goes off the board. Getting into this 6th round now, J.C. Horn going to the Lions and Christian Barmore to the Chiefs. Pete Werner to the Jets. and Brock Wright going to the Raiders. This is the last selection that we have. Hopefully we can make it a good one. So I think we're going to go ahead and go with someone who may be considered a little bit of a reach. I don't think so, though, and that is Nick Bolton, middle linebacker. Hidden Dev, 144 in true talent, got him at 167. And I just like what he brings to the table. He's well-rounded and someone that I think we could develop into our starter one day. I believe this is where we can go ahead and just send to the end of the draft. So this is what we ended up with coming out of this draft with Micah Parsons, Travis Etienne, Trey Smith, Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Joby, Kellen Mond, and Nick Bolton. Pretty good slew of players here, and a lot of future starters I see at the top of this board. And let's go ahead and see who the best player in the draft was. And it was, in fact, the first two or three players off the board there, and Penei Sewell, Trevor Lawrence, and Jamar Chase, all tied for the top overall. But coming in there at number 4 was our pick, Micah Parsons, and I do think we made the right decision. Parsons over Chase, despite the fact that Chase is highly rated here. I just feel like the bigger impact to our team, in my opinion, was going to be Micah Parsons. So we're going to go ahead and advance. We can always adjust the roster later. So this is going to round out this offseason here in your Toronto Huskies franchise. And I think it was a very successful one. Looking at the way our team is shaping up here, got a handful of new players, bringing our overalls up to an 82 overall for the squad, 84 offense, 80 defense, and I love what this team is starting to become. As you see, we made one big trade for Travis Kelce, signed some guys like David DeCastro, as well as a few others in free agency. We were able to retain some other players like Darius Slay and Jonnu Smith going through here, and bring in some young guys, some rookies in Micah Parsons, as well as a few other ones through the draft here. Very excited to see what this team can end up being moving forward. I think that it could be a special season upcoming for your Toronto Huskies. And one last look at the roster as I'm going through here, position by position, and then we will go ahead and round this out. And like I said, I feel a special season upcoming for your Toronto Huskies. A season that I think is a long time coming. Hopefully it's a good build-up to the big point of the season here. I think it's something that I've been working towards, and we have been working towards for a few seasons now. And I think I'm going to have to make a few moves here, maybe move Logan Wilson inside. We'll have to figure all that out But for right now, we're just going to leave everybody, and I will do all that sort of stuff in the next video. And we got a ton of corners, by the way. But we'll go ahead and do all that stuff in the next video. I am very excited to get this thing underway for you guys. I think that it is going to be one of the best seasons, hands down, that this Huskies organization has ever seen. And it is thanks to you guys for continuing to come in, tune in, give me your input. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this off season. Hopefully I made some good decisions. And if I did or did not make good decisions, let me know in the comment section, one way or the other. What would you have done differently? What do you agree with? Let me know. Please give this video a like as well and share. But until next time, my name is TaveLikes28, and I thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day.